I should have mentioned that theory because it's the best support I have for the idea I was putting forth. What's being mentioned is a theory, the panspermia theory, which was formulated by Cyril Poonamperama and Crick, who was the discoverer with James Watson, Francis Crick, of DNA. And they are proposing a much more radical theory than what I put forth, at least in terms of relative to biology. They're saying that prebiotic molecules arise in the greatest numbers in deep space, not on the surfaces of planets. That planets are only secondarily and at a late stage in the development of complex polymers and prebiotic compounds do the surfaces of planets become where the action is. I am not saying that. What I'm harking back to is, I'm sure you all know the old adage that we each are made of stars, that the atoms in your body were once cooked in the hearts of stars. This is true, but a unremarked accompanying necessity of that fact would be that there must therefore be some atoms in your body which were not cooked in the hearts of stars, but which were part of the planets which circled around those stars before they exploded. My point being that not all of this material that is circulated in the galaxy has been through something as violent as nuclear burning at the heart of a star. When stars go nova, their planets are blown to pieces, and biotic material that has evolved on those planets is injected into the general cosmic soup of circulating material. And that is more my idea of what the spore strategy may have originally been about. It was forms of life which evolved in very harsh environments where a spore could survive, but seeds, for instance, couldn't. And we were talking at this mushroom conference this weekend about how if you have some mushroom spores and you want to preserve them, the way you do it is you create an atmosphere as much like that of deep space as possible. Ideal is total vacuum at minus 60 degrees centigrade. And then they'll last virtually forever. At any lower temperature, they will slowly degrade. So I envision mushrooms or spore-bearing life forms antecedent to mushrooms evolving in very harsh environments where then actually space was a medium through which they could migrate. And of course, this happens over very long periods of time. But if you think that the galaxy is roughly 100,000 light years from edge to edge, if something were moving only 1/100th the speed of light, which now that's not a tremendous speed that presents problems to any advanced technology. If something were moving 1/100th the speed of light, it could cross the galaxy in 10 million years. Well, there's life on this planet 1.8 billion years old. That's 1,800 times longer than 10 million years. So looking at the galaxy on those time scales, you see that the percolation of spores between the stars is a perfectly viable strategy for biology. And we know that the casing of spores is a very electron-dense material, that it's as electron-dense as many metals. Global currents form, generating superconducting or superconducting states on the surface that make them even more resistant to radiation. And we know that spores are light enough that Brownian motion and convection and this sort of thing, definitely they percolate even into the high stratosphere. And there, highly energetic events are going on at a fairly regular pace, sufficient that we can calculate that a certain number of these, small for each spore shedding, but large in the total context of fungi on the planet, these spores percolate right out of the gravitational field and then are subject to larger forces. So it's radical to suggest this, but it's only because the empirical evidence is thin. The logic of the case is well-founded. What is on much shakier ground, of course, is the idea that the mushroom is an intelligent life form, and that's my special obsession and province, and most people say I'm welcome to it. But it's very interesting. In a book called Perspectives on Scientific Communication with Extraterrestrials, or something like that. Anyway, a book by Poonam Purama, there's an article by R.N. Bracewell, who's an astrophysicist, talking about the logic of searches for intelligent life. And he concludes that no matter what kind of life form you are, no matter what kind of technology you have, if you are seriously going to search space by physically sending probes from one star to another, then the only strategy which would work would be what's called a von Neumann machine, meaning a machine which can reproduce itself, so that the machine leaves its parent star, and then or four of these machines are sent out in four opposed directions from a parent star. At a certain distance from the parent star, each machine replicates. Then you have 8 machines, and at double that distance they replicate again, and you have 16 machines, and so on. The notion being that only by this process of replication can you cover all bets, and that probably then what you do is you send a message which says, we are searching the galaxy by an exhaustive means, and if you read this message, please call the following toll-free number, and we will then initiate contact. And only by this means could you hope to have contact with all the worlds in the galaxy. And this makes it very important to understand what the message is that the mushroom conveys. The Mandayans, who were an obscure religious cult of Gnostics in the Middle East of very long survivability, have this very interesting idea. They believe that at the end of time, what they call the secret Adam will come to Earth. And the secret Adam is a Messiah-like figure, but what he does is he builds a machine which then transmits all the souls back to their hidden source in the All-Father, outside of the machinery of cosmic fate. And this notion of the Messiah building a machine is very interesting. It's conceivable that if there is an extraterrestrial message in our environment, it is a message to build some kind of device so that a less tenuous form of communication can be opened up. And Bracewell makes this case. To him, this is just inherent in the logic of the situation. And I suppose it would be an interesting branch of logic, the logic and the protocols of extraterrestrial contact. What can we define about contact that is so basic that whatever form of life and intelligence you were, you would have to flow along those creodes? This is probably an undeveloped field at this point, but it certainly could be done. It's like alternative physics. We need alternative theories of social contact and social contract making in the event that we meet an extraterrestrial. This is a fertile theme in science fiction, the logic of contact, how to make it without giving away too much and yet not get anything out of it. It's poker, but the stakes are very high. We're talking about the survivability, viability, and evolutionary fates of species, if not entire planets.
Yeah, you talked about the collapse of the distinction between inner and outer space.
Right.
And how would you to go into that more?
Well, the distinction of inner and outer space is rooted in association of the self with the body. And I think as the self moves out into the ocean of electronic consciousness, and also as we explore the erotic dimensions with the other that I've indicated tonight, this identification between self and body will become secondary in a way that identification between king and self has become rather secondary over the last 5,000 years. I mean, we don't even have a king. We seem to manage without one. It's conceivable we could manage without a body as well. These are just ways that loyalty is transferred toward forms of cultural concrescence validated by local languages. Anything else? Yes.
It seems that you talk as if humanity's on like a threshold of a new age, and that maybe through contact the aliens will help us like cross this threshold. Maybe you might want to elaborate more.
Well, I definitely think we're on that there is a process that has been long underway, that has been gaining momentum since its very beginning. It's the process which formed the planet, which called life out of the ocean, which called higher animals out of lower animals, which called humanity out of the primates, and which called history out of tribal, sacral, timeless existence. And what it is leading toward is some kind of apocalyptic, transformative flowing together of everything that is beyond our language system. It's the umbilicus of being. It's where it's all tied together, and therefore it's very hard to describe it. I think that all of our science and our religion and our history, these are patterns thrown across a limited set of dimensions by the hyperdimensional fact of a certain object at the end of history toward which we are moving, to which we are being drawn. I think that most things about man are mysterious, and that what is happening to us is mysterious. The sudden explosive development of the neocortex is entirely out of context with what we know about the rates of evolution that go on in other species and previously went on in the primates. Now it's been very fashionable in the past, 50 years or something, to think that it's all very humdrum somehow. And yet, this is just every ideological system that has been granted the status of being the official view of reality has always proclaimed that it had everything nailed down but the last 5%, and their best people were working on that. But I think that we are, for all that we know practically nothing. And that though I am not in any sense of the, well, not in any sense, but in most senses I am not religious, I think that religious thinking about the transformation of the world is more on the right track than the notion that the laws of physics will always be what they are, the laws of biology will always be what they are, and we're all just going to go along and things are going to get worse and worse or better and better, but that there are no surprises. I think that we do not see what's going on. One of the reasons I like to make this argument about the mushroom and the extraterrestrial and all that is just to show people that maybe this isn't true, but look how you can see things differently. If things can be seen that differently, how many ways can they be seen differently? and to try and get people to realize, to stop waiting for the president to enlighten you. In other words, stop waiting for history and the stream of historical events to make it clear to you. You have to take seriously the notion that understanding the universe is your responsibility, because the only understanding of the universe that will be useful to you is your understanding. It doesn't do you any good to know that somewhere in some computer there are tensor equations which perfectly model or perfectly don't model something that's going on. And we have all tended to give away ourselves to official ideologies and to say, well, I may not understand, but someone understands. But the fact of the matter is, only your own understanding is any good to you. I mean, because it's you that you're going to live with, and it's you that you're going to die with. And as the song says, you know, the last dance you do alone, and you want to be in good company then. So it's very important to cultivate this aspect of yourself and to be with it. I don't know what the transformation means, this rushing together of everything, but I think without knowing what it means, you can convince yourself that it's there. It's just nobody has chronicled it, or no official agency has pointed out that things are developing faster and faster. Things are growing together faster and faster. Connections are being formed faster and faster. The evolution of language, technology, understanding of the self, these things are just spinning into a tizzy, and it will not go away. It will go through. It will break through to something else, and we may have to shed the present human guiding image. We may have to shed the monkey body. We have to be open, very open. What is happening on this planet, if you stand off by a nearby star and look at it, is there is information loose on this planet. A swarm, a gene swarm of replicating information which has become so complexified that it now generates swarms of epigenetic information, meaning books, architectures, mythologies, all of these things. And information is liberating itself. And what is that? And what does that mean? You know, the Gnostics had the idea that God's body had been scattered through the universe as light, and that the purpose, the salvational imperative, was to gather the light together and get it out of this universe and transmit it back to the modality of its essence. And that's a good metaphor for what is going on. But no one understands it, I think. But we can understand aspects of it. We are lagging. There is enough visible that we should be saying more about what's happening. And I don't hear that being said. Maybe it's being said privately. Maybe it's a taboo subject. Perhaps the attraction for some people of these lectures is that they somehow violate taboos, that impossible things are being said. Maybe, maybe not, but impossible things need to be said because impossible things are happening, and you don't want to miss it. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk to you about this. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.